wrestling is so important to you, and how you're going to bring a flavour of that into the octagon this weekend.
Well, I can't bring any flavour of pro wrestling into it unless I actually win. So first things first, I have to win. But yeah, I did start wrestling because I thought that's how you become a professional wrestler, was to start on the amateur circuit. Didn't quite work out that way, but I do have a pro wrestling catchphrase that I might bust out after I win.
You're holding that one back?
Yeah, we'll hold it back.
And I understand you were getting ready for a pro boxing fight when you got the call for UFC, is that right?
Yeah. I'm pretty much always training and competing in something, so I'm never completely out of shape.
So what sporting activities do you enjoy other than getting in a cage and fighting professionally?
Oh, everything's martial arts based. So if I'm not boxing, I'm wrestling, or I'm Thai boxing, or I'm doing jiu-jitsu.
Down in Australia, obviously, it's a fair way away from sort of the bulk area, sort of the main market of the UFC, if you like. Give us an idea of just how big mixed martial arts and the UFC is getting over there.
I'm from the west of Australia in Perth, and it's really not. It's kind of fallen away in the last couple of years. We were getting busier. We had a couple of guys that were. Soa was just making his rise into UFC, and we had a couple of local guys that were fighting regularly and had a bit of a fan base, and we were allowed to have shows in the cage, and it was building. Now it's fallen right away, but over on the east coast of Australia, especially Melbourne, where they're gearing up towards the November show, it's definitely getting bigger. Like, I walk around in Melbourne and people will be like, "Hey, Steve Kennedy," and in Perth, no.
How important of a market is Australia, do you think, for the UFC?
I think it's very, very important to be if they want to be truly global. Having said that, we have to be able to compete at the same level. You know what I mean? You can't give Australian fighters token fights just to include us. You know what I mean? It's not the Soccer World Cup. We need to be competitive.
We've seen like some of the shows they did on the Gold Coast. Not many Australian names on that card. Do you think now that's what it's about? You know, you're here in Berlin to put your name out there and to start building more Australian stars.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if we could there's a few guys coming through now, legitimate guys. Daniel Hooker and Robert Whittaker are two that I reckon can go all the way. Like, not even kidding, and not even being overly patriotic there. So, it will take time, but Australia's a very, very athletic country. We're just not really like into martial arts, wrestling, that sort of thing. Our Thai boxing is probably our best deal. But as the athletes start to go, hey, there's something I can be successful in, and it's such a cool sport, it is addictive. It can go one of two ways, obviously, but we could explode. I think we have the potential to explode in Australia.
My media colleague there mentioned about your pro wrestling kind of background. Slightly linked to that, how important is it for a fighter to kind of have a gimmick, a character that the fans can get behind? You previously talking about Conor McGregor, he's one of the fighters that arguably does it best. You know, how important is it for a fighter to have a personality that people can buy into?
I think a lot of fighters forget that it's an industry, and that the only reason any of it happens is because people buy tickets or buy UFC Fight Pass, that sort of thing. So if you forget that you're there to entertain people, and you just, it's about proving how tough you are to yourself, you're losing it, and then people are going to become disinterested. If you give more and more and more to people, people will give you more and more back.
And what are people going to expect from a Steve Kennedy fight? This is your first fight in the UFC. People tuning in, what can I expect to see?
Well, like I said, if you expect very little, and you'll never be disappointed.
Brilliant.
Sobotta is from, he's going to be the hometown boy.
Yeah.
Are you going to feel any pressure in there going up against that?
No, I'm usually hated wherever I go.
And Sam just mentioned there about you making your debut. Do you feel any kind of UFC jitters, UFC pressures that you've got to come in and kind of show, I'm Steve Kennedy, I'm here to stay?
I think there's pressure in that I can't get dominated, but there's never a week leading up to a fight where you go, hey, I don't really have to win this one. It doesn't matter if I lose this one, you know what I mean? Every fight leading up to it feels exactly the same. Oh my God, I'm going to die. He's going to kick my ass in 10 seconds. I've got nothing to live for. Like, what am I doing this for? This is the last fight. It's never going to happen again. And then as soon as you're in there, it's like, oh yeah, it's just like that sparring thing we do every day. So,